In the name of justice and freedom I fight. And though the road may be long, I find comfort in knowing that I am not alone. Join me in the assassin's den.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Assassin's Den. I'm Loomer, your host, along with EscoBlades.
Hi.
And also joining us today is Kate, who runs the All Sounds Assassin's Creed Tumblr, which is dedicated to the music, voice acting, and sound effects of the Assassin's Creed series. Hello, Kate.
Hello.
Hey, and finally, we have a very special guest today. So he's worked in Hollywood as a score producer and composer of additional music for such films as Inception, Sherlock Holmes, and The Dark Knights. But we in the Assassin's Creed community know him best for composing the score for Assassin's Creed 3, The Tyranny of King Washington, as well as music for the cutscenes and multiplayer of Revelations. So we're very excited to welcome Grammy Award-winning composer Lorne Balfe to the podcast. Lorne, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. I think Kate, you sounded a bit asleep there.
Sorry.
I was hello. I'm on my third Diet Coke of the morning, I know, but gosh, I've got more energy.
All right. I think we're all awake now. So
Yeah.
as always, we've solicited questions from the Assassin's Creed community that we'll be asking throughout the episode. So Lorne, why don't we start by talking about how you got involved with Assassin's Creed? Because I know most people know about your work on Revelations, but your involvement with the franchise actually started with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, because you did the music for the E3 trailer of that game. So I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, well, it was, basically, yes, it was doing the trailer, and I think I was on it for a long time. I know there was lots of versions going on, and I was on it for maybe about a month and a half, 2 months, which, you know, really is quite a long time for such a short, kind of a short presentation. But I came on board, and I think I was pitching for it. I think a lot of people were pitching, and then it slowly led into them all kind of liking what I was doing, and then it just naturally, well, not naturally, it sounds quite planned there, but it just kind of led into a conversation of just taking over the multiplayer.
For Revelations.
For Revelations.
I see.
And it was really, it's one of these things. It was just being the right place and in the right time, and they were liking the music that I was doing for this trailer, and then it opened up a conversation about, you know, doing these multiplayer scenes.
Cool. So they approached you and a bunch of other people to kind of make kind of pitches for the trailer. Is that kind of how it was? And then they chose yours?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You know, it's like anything nowadays that really, it's very common for pitches to happen for commercials, for trailers, for TV shows. It's everywhere, and with this one, with the trailer, because I think, you know, they really, well, it is a short film. These trailers that they do for E3, and it looks like a short film, and there's a lot of storytelling going on, and I think that they wanted to see what, so because I wasn't really from a gaming background. I know I had done Modern Warfare, but that was really my only game I had worked on, so it was kind of a different platform for me. So I think they were trying out film composers, which is more and more common now, because the concept of a games composer, they're across mediums now. They're working on film, they're working on television, then they work on a game. Everybody's it's far different than what it used to be 5 years ago, that's for sure.
Right. Oh, that's great. I mean, it's a great trailer. And I have kind of a sub-question related to this. Because you composed the music for the trailer, have you seen the literal version that's out on YouTube?
I've got it on my iTunes playlist. That I don't have any of the music that I wrote, but I have that, and it's quite good because it made me think I should have used some of those themes in the trailer more because it was so good.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad you've seen it.
What's astonishing to me is the amount of time and effort that went into that.
Yeah.
That's that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's like one of the top watched videos too on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got like I think probably close to like 10 million hits, I think.
Oh, already?
So
wow.
I think so. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Maybe someone might look this up and decide I'm totally wrong. But I think that was around like how often it's been viewed. Like it's been viewed a lot.
Yeah. And I think it's on. I think you can actually buy it on the on like iTunes now.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
I know that Toby Turner who did it. He's done it like live versions for. He's done a live rendition of it like at Ubisoft like panels and stuff before too. Yeah, like just on like a piano.
Very good.
So this is from a question from the community, which is also my question by Bridget R from Lithuania. So, what inspires you to create music for a video game? Is it writing, the characters, or personality, or game setting?
It's a tick to all of them. It's basically, it's just a game. I'll probably repeat myself quite regularly. A game is just like a film. It is you write based on what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you believe you want to touch and smell and see. It's all part of creating this sonic world. And it's you can watch something and kind of have your own idea, but also there's a bigger factor here. There's a whole team that have been working on games for years, and they have an idea also, and you have to get into their head because they don't necessarily come to you and just say write some music, go off into the wilderness and bring back. It doesn't work like that. You work as a team and you throw ideas around. You listen to different types of music. Because when you're writing games, just like a film, the project's not finished. So you get a lot of like cutscenes when the cinematics arrive. They're not finished, and they're very basic animation. And you're looking at that and you try to score it. So the inspiration is just it's a long list of a lot of factors, and it's not just a case of you meet, you have a little talk, and then I sit and write a theme. It's a long process, and I think looking at Washington, I was there in Quebec, and we were talking about the concept of yes, it's the same game. But visually, the colors are different.
Yeah.
And they are different, and it's in one strange respect, it's a different game. The different colors in there. There's different sounds. There's different seasons of the thing. So it's its own new identity, and it wasn't a case of we'll just use old music. No, let's just go and write new music because it's a different. There's different information and visuals than what we would have. Than what I would have written for AC3.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think it sounds different. To me, it sounds well, I can't say totally different, but it's a different school because it's different kind of characters and colors, and it's a different world.
Mm-hmm.
This next question kind of relates to the one I just asked. It's by Frost. How much does the setting of the game affect the way the soundtrack is made? Do you research the local music culture and instruments of the time and location settings, then use that for the track?
Yes. The thing is that you've got to be careful sometimes, because if you were to write authentic music that would have been at that period of time, it could be borderline boring, because an action sequence, action music what we regard as action music is not what they would have regarded as action music. And you know, you really do have to make a conscious decision to kind of go, right, well, let's look at some of these elements. And with AC3, you know, you really did have a total mixture of cultures. You had the Native American music. You had also a lot of the different influences from Europe. You had the Celtic world. So basically, there was a lot of options for different instrumentations to be used. But the main thing was to try the slightly 21st century up a bit so that people can get into that role of what they're listening to is also what they can relate to. Because, sometimes you did visually want a big orchestra to play during a speech. And that wouldn't have been part of that world. It would have been a simple, you know, a Uchi flute and a drum being played. And you know, it's very good, but it doesn't help the player get into that world, I think.
I'm quite interested in sort of when it comes to composing music for video games, especially, you usually have like various elements. You have cutscenes, like you mentioned, you have gameplay, and I guess in the case of Assassin's Creed, you also have multiplayer as well. Right. I mean, when it comes to, I'm thinking of sort of like your creative process and how much sort of leeway you're given in terms of what you can do based on what you see and what direction you get from, say, the creative and sound department, say Ubisoft. And this actually ties in with a question someone sent in from the community, Jury21 from New York, who's asking effectively the same thing. Do you get strict, specific guidelines, you know, when you meet with a team, or do they just say, look, this is kind of what we want to embody, and then you come back with your own sort of spin on it?
Yeah, you know, the thing is that there's no right or wrong to any of these things. Nobody's got a clear, we're still kind of, the interesting thing about music with games is that we're still learning about different ways of integrating it, and how can we make it more personable for the actual gamer. Also to reduce the repetition of the music, and it's very difficult. I'm sure there's going to be questions about you know, things like the theme being played too often, or why isn't there ambient music and things like that. We're still strangely at a very early stage of how to fully use music as well as we can, because we still treat music as how we treat a film.
Yeah, and
a film is. A film, we can't decide how to change it. That's it. But a game, we can. And so basically, when we start off on a project, you know, the good thing about Ubisoft is that they've got great music teams. And I've been lucky. We've had Jerome and Benedict and Aurelian, all with great musical knowledge, and also great ways of getting it into the game on how we can put it into the game. You get given lists. You know, there's a lot of list making done with game music, and you have a lot of wall charts on your wall, and you have a lot of boxes that haven't got ticks because you're so behind, and you've got to kind of. It's just the beginning of a game is always very scary, looking at how much there is to do. You'll plan with cinematics. You get told, here are the cinematics, and score it. This is what we're thinking. The characters are. This is going through the characters' minds at the moment. This is where we come from. This is where they're going. It's exactly like a film. You talk through the process, you watch it. You know, to me, Assassins, I write the same amount of music for cutscenes / cinematics as I would in a film, if not more.
Wow.
Wow.
So you that side is exactly the same. I think just looking at Washington with that, because the colors of the game were different. There's different seasons, and there was like winter, and it was very, Aurelian was very precise with, what would the sound be of this season, and the colors. So you have constant dialogue, and you get an idea and you write it, and then you give it to them, and then they as a team, they live with it and breathe with it for a while, and you just digest it. It was the same way when doing the AC3 theme. Sitting there and trying to write that theme was pretty hard. There was no brief, but what we knew the brief was we wanted to try to kind of have elements from all these different cultures in that period of time into a theme, and to make the theme epic. So it's very the whole process of music for games is you're part of a team, and if you don't like working in a team, you should just write concert music, because they will come back with feedback, and it's too long, it's too short, can it be bigger? So yeah, it's always an ongoing thing.
That's great. So I thought for this next parts of the podcast, we could kind of step through the different games that you've worked on, starting with Revelations. And when I think about the music for Revelations, I think it's, the theme obviously really sticks out in my mind. And I remember, you did that whole competition on UJam to have to find Madeleine Bell, who did the vocals for it. And I remember when I first heard the theme with her vocals was during one of the trailers that Ubisoft released, where it was showing off the different sections of Constantinople and everything, and it came in, it was just absolutely beautiful. Like, I love that theme so much. And I guess just kind of like, I'm wondering where you drew your inspiration from that, and kind of like what kind of emotions you wanted to evoke with it. Because I listened to it, and I kind of, like, what I get out of it is I hear, especially when you compare it to the AC3 theme, like, AC3 is very energetic and, like, epic, and, like, but with Revelations, it's like, this is Ezio's, like, one of his final, like, journeys. He's an old man, and it's kind of like, there's kind of like an air of finality around it, I feel like. And I don't know if that's what you were going for, or kind of just in general what inspired all that.
I think you've kind of nailed it, really. The point to me was to try to, and again, the main theme was coming from from a trailer that I had done. But I wanted to try to kind of get something that's not. It was a mission statement, if you can call it that. It was a case of this is there's a legacy here. It's not a case of wham bam thank you ma'am. It's an actual, there's a historical legacy to the assassins, and this is history, and I just basically wanted to try to write a very kind of emotional theme for a character that people kind of live. I keep saying, but I'm trying to say there was a bigger picture, the world of the assassins, and if it was like a historical fact and folklore, and it was just I wanted to try to get some emotion into it. And the thing is, of using a female voice, it's always a hard call, that especially coming from Jesper's world, where the female voice was so associated with it.
Right.
There was lots of going back and forth regarding, at one point I was suggesting a male voice, because I thought, well, the assassin is a man. So why don't we have a man voice? But that was, I think the thing is that the female voice really was, because to me, it was kind of, the sex thing really it doesn't really end up being important. The main thing is the emotion. And that's what the objective was with that theme, was to try to get as much emotion as possible out of it.
Yeah. Speaking of Jesper, I know you and him worked on ACR, not together but separately. So what are your thoughts on him as a composer for, I guess, both AC and non-AC works? And it comes with the question from Jamjar from 502 from Lincolnshire. So was there anything you wanted to do different from Jesper, or?
Well, I on purpose didn't listen to any of the music from the first two, because I knew that was going to try to be, it was going to, obviously they're not bringing me in to try to copy him. Mm-hmm. They've got him. So, you know, the thing is that now afterwards, the first one really was it was just mind-blowing music. It was fantastic. And it did create its own world, and it was really fantastic. And I love his music, but I think the main thing was to try to not kind of sit there and poach from him and poach from that world. We were geographically doing a new period of time and a new place, and it was you know, let's just try to do something new. So and also, we were kind of doing two different jobs on Revelation, because I was just doing multiplayer, so I wasn't kind of in his world, and we kind of had two different objectives going on.
Right. Well, it started out as multiplayer, and then you also ended up doing like most of the cinematic scenes as well, right? And then he was mainly in-game music, I believe. Yes, and
then the strange thing is, then some of them, you know, this is how it works with gaming music. Things change sometimes, and then some of the multiplayer music ended up in-game music.
Okay.
So you know, there was that's what happens. It's a piece of music. It's the same way as in a film. You could write it for a scene, and then lo and behold, somebody goes, "Ooh, it could work here also." And it's that's the kind of the fun about this. It can be placed around in different places and give a scene a whole different opinion. And also yes, and so some of the multiplayer music ended up just in the in-game world.
So we had a question from Jamjar502 from Lincolnshire, who is asking, are there any tracks you're particularly proud of on the AC3 / Tyranny of King Washington soundtrack? But I thought I'd kind of extend this for each of the different, as we talk about each of these different games. And and then we'd also maybe talk about, kind of just go around the table and talk about some of our favorite tracks really briefly, and maybe kind of the ideas behind them. But so to start off with you, Lorne, are there any tracks on Revelations that you're particularly proud of?
You know, AC3 to me, the theme was the thing that I worked the hardest on because it was this so much hard work on. Had to be the voice and the stamp of this game, and that's like having to sit down and write the backstory and the look of what your new character is. So it's very intimidating, that. So that was something to me that's always very daunting, but very enjoyable to do, because it just creates your whole world. So the main thing to me, but then also just because I've got Celtic blood in me, things like Fight Club and Beer and Friends, they all they just I'm glad that I'm always blessed at the moment on a lot of projects to be able to see the word Irish written down or Celtic or Scottish to be put down as a kind of a brief note. So when I see that, I go, great, here we go, and do something like that. So yeah, I have fun when I get to do something different, and also, you know, things like Connor's life, the frontier world. I felt that I was trying to do something new with also, was because it was, the game was at a very interesting period of time. So musically, you know, Frontier is to me was a case of the kind of the awakening of what music could be, and so you could try, you know, you could do things with it. So in that order, main theme, but I don't know, secretly anything to do with Fight Club or Battle or Beer and Friends is going to be my winner.
Okay, when we get to AC3, yeah. That's great.
On Revelations, my favorite track is Son of Umar, and I remember that one particularly because it's the first in game. It's the first Altair memory that you're able to play, and you know he comes in riding gallantly on this horse and saves everybody else. And I think with that particular track, at least for me, it's sort of the way it builds up to that crescendo at like 20 seconds in, and it's sort of that's when the action really starts. So I think for me, it really embodies what he was, and it's kind of like what you've said with sort of getting the emotion of the assassins. You know, they're under attack at that particular time, and it's kind of like had that emotion for me anyway.
You know, the thing is that also I think you've got the themes to do with the sailing images also with that, all kind of, that colour was all, a lot of how I started off was doing the trailers. Yeah. And they kind of then, they led a lot of things, the journey, you know, things like, there had to be different colours in that game that we weren't kind of necessarily used to, if you know what I mean. There was, it was a far bigger cinematic world than what I think the prior games had come from, and basically it was, to me, it was just, we were able to go far bigger than musically I think they had wanted before, and things like the Revelation I always liked, and Passing the Torch. How long ago was Revelations?
It's a couple of years ago.
It's not a lot.
2011.
Oh.
2011, yeah.
Yeah, end of 2011.
My gosh.
Just like a year and a half ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I say one of my favorites from Revelation is Oroko. I think it plays during the scene where Prince Suleiman is playing chess with Ahmed. It's been a while since I played Revelation, so I don't remember too much. I don't know what to say. It was one of the songs that actually stuck out when I was playing it. I was like, oh, this is actually really nice.
I think we achieved our objective then. You know, the thing is that also that it is one of these things where I suppose the argument is always, well, it's nice for this music to be able to stand alone, and what I didn't really realize until I started, I think it was really when I got into AC3 how important game music is. And I know that sounds a silly thing to say, but I really didn't realize how much of it people lived and breathed, because it's part of their world for a long time. A film, I'll sit there and watch, and an hour and a half later, I move on with my life. And I may think about it and discuss it with friends, but with gaming, people live this. And this music really does get into their subconscious. It's very amazing to me, because I still can't fathom how there's always the argument some people like turning the music off because they just personally want to listen to AC/DC instead. It's their preference. But this really does. It becomes very personal to them.
A really good game soundtrack, it's like I'll listen to it on my own and it just immediately brings you back to that world. And it's like the really good ones, like pretty much all the Assassin's Creed soundtracks, like both the stuff that Jesper Kyd did and also you did, do a really good job of immediately bringing you back to those worlds, and it's beautiful, I think.
Well, I think if you're able to also, I think I know, even with the likes when I do a children's game like Skylanders, I try to look at things as a piece of music, and the luxury that we have with gaming, unlike films, is that you can actually write music that doesn't have to hit certain things. You can actually just write a nice piece of music, and you have a clear intention of what you want to say, whether it's a naval battle scene or if it's in the frontier or wherever. You can actually just sit and write a good piece of music that, we try to write a good piece of music. Whether we achieve it or not is another matter. But the thing is that you're not as restricted as you would be if you were writing for a film. So it makes it more exciting because you can just go and write a piece of music that can then get put into the game, but also stand alone. As you know, you see the same with Journey with Austin Wintory. These pieces just stand alone.
Yeah, beautiful music in Journey.
Yeah.
So for me, for Revelations, I'll just give a really quick shout out to the multiplayer soundtrack, which I thought was amazing in that. But in particular, I really loved some of the chase themes for it. And two in particular stick out to me, the Pursuit and Chase the Target.
Oh, yes.
And it really saddens me because I think they're amazing pieces. And I've always loved kind of like the chase music in all the Assassin's Creed games. But the problem with these ones is that, A, they're in the multiplayer, which most people don't play, at least from the Assassin's Creed fanbase. B, most people don't start chases very often. Well, I mean, maybe some of the newer players do. But then, like, C, like, the chases usually don't last longer than maybe, like, 20 seconds or something.
Yeah.
And so it's like a lot of times, like, it's when
10 seconds for me.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And I just find it really sad that, like, I love these tracks and they're beautiful. And then, like, but, like, unless you're listening to the soundtrack, like, you will never hear, like, the best parts. Like, it's always whenever I'm in a chase, it's like, oh, it's just ramping up to the good part, and I killed the guy. And I noticed actually that they took the Pursuit and actually used it in AC3 for one of Connor's Captain Kyd missions.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, this is kind of weird because I associate it so much with Revelations multiplayer, but I was like, at the same time, like, oh, this is, like, I can actually hear the full track and it's so epic and I love this thing.
The thing is that when we started on AC3, we had kind of a playback of just looking at how the music was put into Revelations, and how can we look at that and take information from that and learn things from it. And yeah, sometimes I'd sit there and go, gosh, I do remember writing about another 3 minutes of that piece of music, and it's gone already. so you kind of it's always a shock, but yeah, it's what happens. It's the same as in a film. Sometimes you can write a big action sequence and all of a sudden they favourite the sound effects, so the music goes off, and the sound of a car explosion is more interesting.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why you've spent a month and a half trying to write a piece of music, but it's but that's what's interesting about game music, is that you that's what can happen. Sometimes that piece of music can only last 15-20 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. So it's going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a shame, but I guess that's just how it goes. Anyway, moving on to Assassin's Creed 3. We'll try to move through these a little bit quicker, I think. But so for Assassin's Creed 3, I guess I feel like I'm kind of drawn to the themes of each of these games, kind of like as the kind of the musical anchor for the entire soundtrack for me. And so for AC3, I feel I'm also curious. You talked a little bit about kind of mashing up different cultures a little bit. I guess that kind of speaks to Connor's mixed heritage.
Yeah.
Everything. And I love the theme. It's very epic. It feels bigger in scope than kind of the Ezio games.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, because I think the game was meant to, and also kind of has kind of like a youthful energy to it as well. Compared to Ezio, but also it's also a very sad soundtrack though. Connor's story is not a happy story, and I was wondering if this is what you had in mind, or anything else for kind of your inspiration for Assassin's Creed.
No, I think I think the sad things it is right, because it wasn't this period of time in history it wasn't a holiday camp. It was very barbaric and harsh living, and it wasn't as romantic as one may think it was, and everything about it, even the way people fought, it was very barbaric, and it was not a good time. But then again, it wasn't a case of trying to do things gloomy. It was a case of just trying to get some more. I just wanted to get more of Connor's soul into the game musically, and then also the whole concept of it's the assassins again, and just like with Revelations, I needed to come up with a theme that kind of represented, I hate to say it, but there is the commercial side of it, of the franchise. This is the new game now. It's a different period of time, so you've got that also. But the main thing is it's this a new group of assassins, and the stories were very complicated, and that's I wanted to try to make the themes more soulful.
So when I think of the Assassin's Creed 3 soundtrack, it's like a few things really stick out, and it wasn't until I played through a second time that I took more notice of the music and the soundtrack. And it's stuff like the contrast between, say, you have the big battle scenes, the big battles that happened, and then you take that and then you contrast with like the relative peace and calm and quiet of the frontier, for instance, where you maybe just some birds chirping, or you see an elk running around somewhere, and then you get to the cities like Boston and New York, and you have that sort of hustle and bustle and a little bit of the Celtic charm that you were talking about injected into it. And I think and this actually ties into a question someone asked, but is that when you're having sort of like that big board in front of you and the checklist of stuff that you have to do, are those the sort of things that you feel like I've got to nail this because I've been given this mission statement. The question from the community comes from Assassin's Field 3, quite poignant actually, from Zeba Tower, and he says, when you were first told of the project, what were the first things that came to your mind? So does that kind of correlate?
Yes, I think it's things like, yes, the key words are things like frontier. Also, this was AC3 was a very big game. There's so many places. You've got Boston, you've got the frontier, you've got the homestead. It really was far more very complicated, and I had to kind of, with Boston, you've got this, well, I called it the cities theme, but it was like and it's wrong. It's not the beginning of the birth of the industrial change, because it's a wrong period of time, but it's the beginning of growth, and it was very hard to try to kind of homestead. It's very what they could play there in the homestead. It's a very organic piece, and that's very kind of Celtically influenced. But you sit there with the game developers, and you get shown drawings, and then if they haven't created it yet, but you look at characters, and you look at Boston, you look at the homestead, and you start getting ideas, and then you play pieces of music to each other that just are different, are source materials from what would have been listened to at that period of time, and then you start getting influenced by it. So it's always very intimidating starting a project, because it's a blank canvas. Yeah. And they've created this special world that is unlike no other, and they basically say to you, now musically do the same. So it's very intimidating, because you have to create something special for that world, and you look at things the same as characters. You want to try to bring its own identity musically to this world. So yeah, it's all very, very intimidating. It's like a first date. You sit there, you just you kind of you get very nervous, and the first chat-up line may not work. But,
Okay.
you gotta keep trying.
Hey, do you like my staccato? No.
Dating advice with Lorne Balfe. Don't give up.
Never.
I did also want to quickly bring up the Desmond sections. And for me, that felt a little bit more, and I use the word sterile, but in the best way concerning those segments. But it felt more sterile than the flamboyance of the Assassin's world. I mean, did your approach differ? I mean, was there anything that you kind of did different? Did you have to maybe put yourself in a different room? I think the music made those Desmond sections feel more cold. I mean, I physically felt a little bit colder playing them. Obviously, you're in the cave and it's dark and all that stuff.
It's interesting because we've got a special technology that changes the room temperature. It's 5D. No, it's the thing is that there had to be a stillness to it, because it was that world to me. Desmond's world was a very, if this is the right term, to me, it was a very clinically clean world.
Yeah.
The rest of the game to me is like a mass of anarchy going on, with all these different cultures infiltrating it. So really, the Desmond world was the one place to try to do the contrast, and also I think it is a total change of instruments. We've been hearing a lot of real organic players playing period of time right instruments, and now with Desmond world, it was the opportunity to have a sonic break, and a change of color.
I do love the modern day soundtrack, and one of the things I think I could quibble a lot about how the modern day was handled in general with AC3, but I loved kind of with the writing and the music, kind of the sense of this air of desperation that kind of hung around it. Everything's very tense, and because you're basically counting down to the end of the world, and especially with a track like Modern Assassin, which is one of my favorites. It's like I'll play that when I'm driving, and it feels like I'm driving to the apocalypse sometimes. Like it's just, I love that.
I think that's how I was feeling when I was trying to get it done.
So why don't we move on to talking. So you had already kind of talked a little bit about your favorite tracks. I'll count Modern Assassin as mine for this section. We'll move through these quickly. So Lorne, you had mentioned basically anything with kind of like a Celtic influence. So like especially Beer and Friends and Fight Club, I believe.
Yes.
Right? For Assassin's Creed 3.
Just to let you know, Fight Club is one of my favorite musics from Assassin's Creed 3. It's it's funny because the first time I heard it, it was like, I should actually go out to the pub and start a fight or something, or at least from a quote from my friend. That's what he said.
I like that track also because it's a fun track. Like it's very, with the rest of the soundtrack and the events being so serious, this is like one of the few things where it's just like that, and kind of maybe the Homestead, where it's kind of like you just get a little break and it's just kind of fun fist fights. Like
yeah, and also it's just you kind of. To me, it's a case of it's a piece of music where it puts you in it, and it's something that you could imagine actually being played there.
So, with the Tyranny of King Washington, which is it's still AC3, but it's kind of like a whole different soundtrack as it was.
Yeah.
Interested in when did you start? So when did you start work on it in relation to when you finished the score for Assassin's Creed 3? And this ties in very nicely to a question from Triple R 309 from Atlanta, who asks again, did you begin work on the Tyranny of King Washington score as soon as you finished AC3, or was there a break in between to let you sort of think of ideas? He also mentions that he loved how you made it far more chaotic than the main game. It really worked out.
Chaotic, is that a good term?
That's a good term. Yeah. Well, yeah.
He has a little smiley face here.
Like a cat smiley.
I think he liked it.
Oh, okay. So, I think there was a break of about 2 months, and then we started. The thing is that it's game music is always a very long process sometimes because it's difficult because on a Monday you have a lot to do, and then that following week you may have nothing to do because the gameplay isn't ready for you or it's not needed. So sometimes there's a lot of downtime with not having anything to do. But with Washington, there was a lot of sending information over to me, and then my plan was I was going to Quebec to meet them all and get presented the proper game to me. And my plan was to go there, look at it all, and then come back to LA and write it. But about a week before I actually went, they started sending me drawings of the Tyranny of King Washington and the actual the poster of it, and I started seeing all these colors, and then I thought I just started hearing Washington's sound. So I wrote it and then took it to Quebec. So before I even had the presentation, I played them it, and thankfully they liked it. So it was purely based on the colors and just reading the backstory on Washington that was what happened then, and then I think I think I was on it maybe for about 5 months.
It's quite a large undertaking for a DLC. I was very impressed with everything that came out of it. And when I think about like the kind of the soundtrack of the Tyranny of King Washington, there's kind of 3 things that stick out to me. The first is, well, I guess the main theme of AC3 pretty much being more or less absent from whenever you're playing in this alternate illusion slash timeline slash whatever you want to call it, and having a new theme called Radon Hagedon, which is kind of woven in throughout the rest of the tracks, which is very much more it has a lot more, it feels like it has a lot more Native American influence in it than the main AC3 thing did, which is kind of makes sense because Connor never becomes an assassin in the Tyranny of King Washington, right?
Absolutely.
And so you hear a lot more like, you know, you think of Native American music, it's kind of a lot of like flutes and maybe like drums, and definitely a much stronger kind of like flute presence in the theme than in the main theme.
We could have gone down. There could have been 2 routes down here with the fact of the DLC. There could have just been, let's just use a lot of the music from AC3. You know, it'll work. But this is where gaming is so important. The music side of it, I think, because thankfully there was a lot of people that really did. This was its own identity. And Aurelian and the whole team there really did feel very strongly with having the whole its own sonic world that was different, and that's why then it just turned into, actually, you know what, we do need much more new themes now.
Yeah, I did notice that a couple pieces did work their way into the DLC. So like there's
Frontier theme
through the Frontier theme, yeah, and then but it's different. It's a little and so I like that because it's like there's a lot of new music, but then sometimes you'll also encounter these pieces which are and I think it's kind of mirrors what Connor's going through, where they're familiar, but it's like something's not right. Like it's a little twisted, and I love that part. That was one of the other things that really comes to mind with the soundtrack. And then also obviously anything related to Washington having kind of this very kind of military kind of like a march type so it kind of like his rule.
I think what we had talked about in Quebec was the concept of, well, what the information that I'd read and seen that got me to writing that was it's like a big tub of oil being spilt and it's spreading everywhere. And this is Washington. This is just the anarchy and his whole presence and power just taking over everything. And I think when you start looking at that way, that's why you have to go for this dark, big type of Darth Vader-ish kind of character.
I did think a little bit about the Imperial March, like when you listen to something like the King Washington track. It's a little bit. I mean, they have common roots, I think.
Well, of course, yes. The common roots are there. It's the music that, what I wanted to do with Washington is that it's the music that if he did have a home music system, he would have been listening to that. Plus he was planning his next objective.
Oh, it's amazing. So in regards to favorite tracks, in the interest of time, we won't do separate ones for us, like the 3 of us from the community. We had talked a little bit beforehand, and we all agree that the new Radon Hagedon theme is beautiful.
I had to say, well done that you can pronounce his name.
I don't even know if I'm doing it quite right, but like,
the pronunciation is different for every character. I realize.
Radon
Hagedon sometimes.
To me, it's the dude.
The dude, yeah. And especially the track Man with the Wolf Hood. I know this is one of Kate's favorites as well. I love that track too, and it's beautiful. But on your end, Lorne, any tracks in particular that you're proud of or that are your favorite from the work on King Washington?
Yeah, well, Washington, I think the whole development of it, I think having started, strangely enough, with Washington, it was my first introduction thematically. So I'm always going to be kind of very connected to that. But tracks like Wolf in Sheep's Clothing was always good for me. But I did like Duel at Dawn and.
Yes.
The other thing is that I wanted to try to do different mixes of some of the themes. So we actually went back and took the old AT theme and made it sound different because it was there's always things when you finish a project, it's like saying goodbye, and sometimes you just don't want to say goodbye. So it was nice to kind of do a different. But I'm not even going to pronounce it, but the Dude theme to me. I always particularly like because I think it's whatever we as composers can do to help get you more into this game, the better. And to me, I felt that by doing this, it helped part of the whole process of us making this a whole experience, and that. I hope people felt the same with that.
Yeah, I love Duel at Dawn, by the way. I'm a sucker for good boss music, and I love that final boss fight with that appropriately awesome boss music. So good. All right, so I wanted to spend a couple minutes talking really quickly about the VGA medley that you did for the 2012 VGAs, which for me personally was absolutely the highlight of the show, no question. It was so good. And I was wondering, as a fan, it's just I hadn't even played half of these games, and it was just still so very emotional. Every time I listen to it, I get chills. And so I'm kind of curious, maybe if you could talk really quickly about how that came about and kind of the challenges in... deciding the order of the songs. You had Mass Effect 3, Walking Dead, Journey, Dishonored, and Assassin's Creed 3. And as an Assassin's Creed fan, it was when I was watching that, it's like you hit Dishonored and you're like, oh snap, that means Assassin's Creed is going to be the climax of the piece. So excited for it. But kind of just kind of the challenge, how it came about, kind of the challenges involved. I'm sure you had to transpose a bunch of keys for a bunch of these pieces, and kind of just in general, your thoughts on that whole thing.
The challenges are it's very hard when doing something like that. The concept came about through Mark Burnett, and Mark produces the show. Mark and Roma, I'd finished a TV show with Hans called The Bible, and they created and produced the Bible, and Mark was doing the VGAs, and the exact way the pitch was that we've got to music is very important in games, and how can we showcase this? So we spent some time talking about what could we do? Could we do the history of game music? That would be very complicated to do,
right?
So I think it came down to the games of the year, and how we can do it, and a medley is always a hard thing. It is, it's a lot of work, because not only you can only showcase the game for about 30 seconds,
right?
So, and then after that, you then end into the situation of what order does it go in? And people want to sit at the head of the table. They don't want to necessarily be sitting at the side, and it was very difficult trying to get the right order of it. So it was that was a lot of work. But the main thing to me was to try to tell a story.
Yeah.
And and musically just have this journey beginning with Mass Effect, and AC3 just ended up being at the end purely because of the speed of it, the size of the orchestration, and the fact that it was just it was the whole thing. To me, I wanted to try to make it like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I think that we did what our plan was to do. Really, it was to showcase what all the themes were, and also just have a great little performance, and also and have that orchestra playing. And that was the main thing, because we're not. I think people used to kind of they did used to think of computer game music being electronic, and it's not that any longer. It's proper orchestral music that you would hear in a film or whatever. It's just as valid, and I think that this was a big stamp of and I I know that we'll do it again, hopefully. So it's it's good that it's good that a lot of people also. You can see the feedback on YouTube and things about it, because it was just like a good nod to all the games.
Yeah.
And and I think it strangely did work as as a piece of music, so it was good.
I loved it especially because it's just sort of like you were able to fuse those melodies and tempos so well. I mean, like I used to play classical piano, so that kind of spoke to me on like just that level. It was listening to it and how everything fit. And I was thinking, I can't even imagine how long it would have taken to decide this has to go in third place and here, and we need to take this particular part of it and fuse it with this and match the beats and the tempo. And so I was.
It's very, very hard, but the strange thing about it was also you're dealing with something where there's a time limit, because you don't know what is nominated yet. It's not like you can sit there and spend a month writing this, because it really left at the last minute. I think it was I did it the day I finished it the night before we recorded it.
Wow.
Wow.
So it was that fast as a turnover. But the thing is, to me, when listening to it, I naturally knew that you started off with Mass Effect. It's the feeling of that solo piano, yeah. and everything to me. I just when listening to it, I kind of, and with Dishonored, with the drunken wailer, you knew, or you got something visual there with the little girl singing. So it was. I spent longer just thinking about the order than I did actually just rearranging everything to make it a fun piece, because really that's what it's all about. It's to rearrange things, because we also wanted the drunken wailer to sonically fit in. So the drums which in Journey weren't there, we had to put in so that it was all connecting, and you heard some of the flutes and some of the percussion from AC3. You started hearing that in Journey. So it was there was a thread connecting you throughout it.
Okay, so we will quickly go through some of these community questions that we didn't get to in the main podcast. One is another one from Bridget R. in Lithuania, who asks, which video game music scores do you consider most beautiful?
Beautiful? Well, am I allowed to discuss my own?
Why not?
Sure.
I think things like Journey to me, I think is the word beautiful is applicable to that.
Absolutely.
I think that Mass Effect to me was a great score. Halo is now to me, is just a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's like saying what's your favorite child. Music is a very personal thing, as a composer, I can't say what my favorite, what even my beautiful film scores would be. I think everything's associated to something, and I think that I do think that Journey was a great stepping stone into this a different tone of music, which I don't think had been as accessible. You know what I mean by that? It's what we do with games and film and television is give music a different platform, because there's a lot of music out there that people don't hear, but now because we're able to kind of work to a different medium, it opens up a new audience.
Yeah, Journey's soundtrack is very beautiful.
Yeah.
This next pair of questions are very much related. The first is from Avian Tay from Ufa, Russia. I probably butchered all of that. I'm sorry. Who asks, are there any tracks/themes in the AC3 original soundtrack that were a challenge to compose? And if yes, which ones? And how did you overcome the difficulties? And then a similar question from Jimbo from Manila asks, at what particular scene in the games do you find the most challenging to compose a musical score for? So any moments that stick out to you as challenging and how you overcame them?
It's all challenging. I think as soon as you start something, a project, it's a blank canvas, so it's intimidating. Now you've got to create the DNA of what the story is of this game. So I think I will never kind of sit there and kind of go, well, this is particularly harder than that or anything. It's really right from the beginning. It is very hard. You start off petrified and scared and thinking, gosh, I can't do this, because you're creating something new that. And then when you're near the end of it, you kind of you know what you're doing. It's just like an actor, where as soon as they as soon as they know their character, when they do their last scene, they've lived and breathed that character, so they know what they're doing. And it's the same with composing. When you start off, naturally, I'm going to have to start off, or any composer's going to start off with themes, and you sit there and you go, right, this theme has got to be what the identity is of this game. So how do we start? And you spend a lot of time messing around and not constructively doing anything correct. But at least, it's that's the hardest thing, is day one starting.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is from ACFan443, who asks, why was there no ambient music in AC3? Were you told by... Yeah, I know. I asked earlier. Were you told by Ubisoft the reasons why they chose not to include it?
I can't answer why there wasn't, but I think the thing is that the process of writing game music is that it's not one person decides whether this or that is happening. You've got to unlike a film where you can clearly sit back and watch an hour and a half of the film and go, okay, we have too much music, or we don't have enough, or we're not thematically connecting our characters correctly or not. With a game, you have how do you sit back and then just watch 28 hours of gameplay? It's very difficult. So, I can't answer why music in certain places isn't there. It's personal choice, and you test things. You test games like you test a film, and you have people playing it, and the same ways they watch it and they give feedback, and I'm sure it's a case of there's reasonings for these things. It's not kind of done by mistake.
Right. So just to clarify, this was some decision made by Ubisoft and you just don't know why they decided it, pretty much.
Yeah, but the thing is that it'll be like some people will not like the fact that there was none, and some people will like the fact that there was none.
Right.
It's very hard to please everybody, and it's the same way you'll get told, well, I wish there was less of the theme. There's too much of the theme. And some people will say, I love the theme. I love hearing it all the time. It's very hard to keep everybody happy, unfortunately. Yeah. And we do our best, and it's the same ways. Some people don't like themes. You've got the other thing like that. They would prefer more ambient music in general, and but it's just what happens sometimes.
Right. Okay. Next question is from Eric DS from the USA, who asks, when you first began making/composing a musical score for a game, which would, I guess, probably be Modern Warfare 2 for the first time, what challenges did you encounter that differed from previous work? What challenges with Modern Warfare? Oh, I think the question is mainly when you first started making video game music, like what challenges did you encounter that you hadn't encountered before?
Oh,
it's the heart of the question, I think.
Gosh, there's the sheer mass of music. it's gosh, there is just a lot of music.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it's I'm still learning, because the thing is you learn from you do honestly learn from talking to people about things, and you learn from sitting in a taxi and they're talking about game music, or they're talking about computer games, and how I think when Modern Warfare came out, the cab driver said to me that he said, "Oh gosh, it was fantastic. I didn't leave my house for 3 days straight."
Yeah.
And it's really I was shocked because look, you don't need to write this amount of music, but to me the thing is that if you can try to kind of create more atmospheres and textures, and the more the better, because it really is it's a big experience that having come from film composing, you just can't fathom it. It's it is so big that you can't imagine it. And you write, and on a game, you can end up writing more music than somebody would in their lifetime. It really is quite intimidating.
Yeah. That's great. So we have kind of a similar question from Assassino Zocht, I think from Germany, who asked, what do you like more, making soundtracks for movies or for games?
Oh, they're both the same. Honestly, it's both the same. You learn when I work on a score for a film. That what I've learned on that is then taken into the game score, and then when I've done that game score, what I've learned from that is then taken into the next film project. So they're both dealing with the same things. We're dealing with characters and plot-driven stories.
Yeah.
And so they're very connected in the same family. So I enjoy both, and I think that the fun thing about it is that even with children's games like with the Skylanders, there's still a story there. It's still plot driven. So you have to help tell a story and create a sonic world for each level, and it's just like a film. And I think that's why now there's a crossover between composers, because I think more film composers now are getting into games because it's another medium of telling a story, and that's why I got into film music for these mediums, is because I like to be part of telling a story, and I like other things. I like to be creating something that goes with visuals. Right. So they're both the same, and I think now, gosh, when you listen to some film scores, you can listen to a game score, and it's just as good.
That's very true. All right, maybe a few more quick questions. So another one here's one from Robo Rose from the UK. It says, other than the AC3 soundtrack, what other film/games soundtracks did you enjoy creating the most?
Well, other than, because I always get a bit of escapism with Skylanders, I must say, because it's I don't have any children yet, but I try to kind of imagine what a child would like to listen to in a crazy other planet. So I get to kind of have fun with that, but I'll never have I don't think every project, you see, strangely enough, I associate writing music to the memory of the project, and if it's stressful or there's a lot of hard work, you kind of I remember that. So everything's got a memory, but everything is just as you're learning whilst writing on all these projects. So it's you come across new ways to approach how to write a theme, maybe, or something. So everything is just as equal as each other, and I think that at the moment I'm having a lot of fun with Beyond Two Souls, because it's a different way of working, and also it's the most cinematic type of game I think I've ever seen. So it's again, it's a different journey that we're doing. So it's fun, and I think the most important thing about all of this is that it's all meant to be fun. So it's they all bring interesting challenges.
That's great. Okay, a couple more. One from Inter230407 from Rossano, Italy, I think.
Yes.
Why are there a lot of tracks on the AC3 soundtrack that were not included on the CD? Most of them are really nice, smiley face. And I'll do a quick plug to note that if you go to lornebalfe.com, he actually put up I think there's probably 40 unreleased tracks from Assassin's Creed 3 on your website or something. Yeah, so you should definitely go check those out. But yes, why are they not on the CD, Lorne?
Gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't have anything to do with that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They're not on there because it goes back to, you can't keep everybody happy. We can't put down we can't put every track out on a CD, because it's we try to. The objective with soundtracks and schools is to try to create a representation of the game or the film. So you can sit there and listen to the journey and the path to get from your first track to the end, and you've told a story musically with what's going on. So that's one reason why tracks get eliminated. Sometimes they get eliminated because some people just think they're rubbish, so they don't they don't go down. And the way I look at things is that that's why I tried to put unreleased music on the website, just purely because people do like it, and they should be allowed to listen to it. And with Washington, I think there's only two pieces that didn't get put on the actual score.
Right.
So and also you look at things and you don't know if people want to hear it. It's a very personal thing. Sometimes you feel you kind of go, well, here's 12 tracks. This represents the score. Because a film, in a film, you wouldn't. People don't really tend to release big soundtracks. They'll choose 10, 12 tracks, and that's it. So and then ironically enough, then sometimes with AC3, it's like, oh, there's too many tracks being released, and why are you releasing so many? So you can't keep everybody happy. So it's a difficult one. So you just try, some people just choose to not necessarily release every single track, and that's why I just try to keep my website updated with all the music. So if people did like something and they don't hear it, they can just go and listen to it there.
Yeah. Okay, one last community question here from B-Bus from New England, who asks, what instruments can you play? And did you play anything yourself for the soundtrack? Probably meaning AC3 or the King Washington soundtrack.
I'm a horrendous musician. I used to think I was a percussionist, and I realized very recently I don't think I can play really in time. Which is not a good sign. But no, I'm kind of a keyboard, piano player. Okay. But I didn't practice hard enough. But the thing is that I think with the way you write nowadays with technology, you have every instrument at your fingertips. So I sit there with a template in my sequencer with 300-400 different instruments, and I create a palette. So with AC3, there was a lot of different dulcimers and sazzes and mandolins and different types of flutes, and I have everything there. And then I just, I try to think like the actual person who is going to play it. And then, I play it on the keyboard. So I'm trying to think. There might be the old Baran Irish drum that I think I played on AC3, but I think I wanted to protect everybody from my playing, so it was wise.
Cool. So why don't we talk about what we can expect next from you? And I think just as important as what you are working on is also kind of what you aren't working on, because it's come out that you're not returning for Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. And I kind of lied. We have one more community question that I'm going to ask here from Jimbo from Manila, who asks, why aren't you going to compose the soundtrack for Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag?
I don't know why I'm not.
Yeah.
I think what happens. Well, listen, I know what happens. It's Assassin's Creed is a franchise now, and it's just like watching. It's like Harry Potter, and the film change, like with films change, directors change, and composers change, and because there's a different new tone to it, and I think probably this is gonna be a different type of game, and they want to just try something different musically with it.
Yeah.
So that's all I can tell you. I don't honestly know.
Yeah.
Would you like to compose it if you had the chance?
Of course. I'm not going to lie and be, I don't care. I don't. Of course I would. You know, the thing is that it's you when you get attached to something like this, you become part of this world, and I've been I've been living this assassin world now for a couple of years now, so it's you kind of it feels like a member of the family, and that's what just happens. But you know, the thing is that it'll be visually, I'm sure it'll be a different type of game, and no, I'm looking forward to see and hear how it turns out.
Yeah, it's a shame you're not returning, but I think you left a very strong mark on the franchise with what you have done. So
I think it's always good to be part. It's an honor to be a part of this journey, because it's always going to continue with or without somebody, right. And it's interesting now, because now from being part of it, I've now then. I've attempted to start playing it, which,
yay!
Which great. 37 was very hard to start picking it up, but it was yeah, you know, I kind of some people were like, I don't understand, how can you be writing game music if you're not playing it, and that makes no sense to me, because I don't act. And I can write film music, so it's got nothing to do with it. There's a bigger picture here of what we have to do. Right. So, but I got into it, and I tell you what, I found I was enjoying myself a bit too much with ACP. There was the feeling of when I had a friend staying with me, and I stopped at one point because I thought I've been here for a couple of hours already. And I'm not gonna be delivering any music for the Tyranny of Washington on Monday morning if I continue doing that. I think to a lot of my clients, it's a good thing that I don't game all the time.
That's awesome. Right, so as far as what you're working on now, I know you have a ton of projects. You talked a little bit about Beyond Two Souls coming out. I'm super excited for that. But anything you want to talk about with what's coming up for you? Oh gosh,
well. In gaming world, I've just finished the score to the new Skylanders, which is always fun because this is my third one now, and it's great fun to be able to have no boundaries. You can do whatever you want in this world, because it's a great adventure. And when I see you know, friends of mine, their children playing it, it's a lot of fun to see them get absorbed into this world. It's very entertaining. So that's and then of course with Beyond Two Souls, I've been on for a while now, and that's very exciting. And I don't say much about it, but you know, the fact is that, as you can see with the trailer, it's pretty spectacular, and it's very, very exciting. So that's very exciting. And then film-wise, I've just finished a couple of films, and I'm starting one literally just at the moment called Blackwood, a British film, and so there's always a lot of things on the go, mainly because, as I say, the difficult thing is that you can start a game and you'll be on it for like a year. But then there may be nothing to do during February and March, and then April kicks in, and then you don't sleep for 3 weeks. So it's very busy. But no, I think Beyond Two Souls is going to be very exciting, and yeah,
definitely looking forward to that. Okay, so I think that'll just about wrap up the show. So, Lorne, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been an honor.
My pleasure, and I'm glad. I think with game music, it's always just nice to see that the music's got its own life, and it's out there, and people kind of enjoy it just as much as when they're sitting there with a console in their hand playing, because it's. I think sometimes composers do feel that the music just gets lost. And it's what's great about all these concerts that happen with game music is that they're showcasing it as legitimate music nowadays, and the world of games is taken very seriously now, and I think it's good because it should do, and the plots are important, the characters are important, and it's got its own identity now, the score. So it's exciting times.
Yes, definitely. So you can keep up with Lorne on his website at lornebalfe.com, which also has, as we said earlier, several unreleased tracks from AC3, so you can check that out. As well as on Twitter, it's at Lorne Balfe, facebook.com/Lorne Balfe Music, and Metrophonics11 on YouTube. You can find me on YouTube and Twitter at Loomer979. You can make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you want to keep up with future podcast episodes. Esco is GBIESC on YouTube, and EscoBlades on Twitter and Facebook. And you can find Kate at allsoundsaskcreed.tumblr.com. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next episode.